What's up, guys? It's Troy. I hope you're doing fantastic. Today, I want to go a little bit more in depth about what trauma is, how it impacts our life, and what can take place when we actually heal those deeper wounds. I reference trauma in a lot of my videos, the importance of that, and how it impacts so many functions in our life. It impacts our careers, our finances, our relationships, our overall happiness. And by healing those deeper wounds, all those areas naturally seem to improve. Why is that? Well, trauma creates deep imprints within the body, within the energetic being. And by doing this, by not healing our trauma and having these experiences, we create what you're probably familiar with, triggers, right? And when we aren't aware of those triggers, they operate from our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind, is estimated to operate like 96% of our thoughts, right? Is operating from the subconscious patterns. And when we have all these emotional wounds, right? And we're carrying them within the subconscious, we are reacting from that place. And when we're reacting to life, we're just kind of bouncing back and forth in the directions that, emotions navigate and move us. We're reacting versus responding. And so the goal as we heal these wounds, these deepest parts of ourselves, is to respond more in life, right? To loosen up more in life. I remember for myself, getting into what I do now with my elite coaching systems and my breathwork medicine that I share. These are things that I brought to the world and my community because I was in a place where I was essentially buried by my past trauma. Having childhood traumas as an adult, and just what happens oftentimes when we have trauma and it's undigested is those loops get repeated. Because I believe that there's a certain part of us that's calling in similar situations for us to heal it and make it different this time. So a common thing is that I'll hear with my clients is I'm just always dating the same type of guy, same type of girl, right? These wounded people, right? Or these emotionally unavailable people. Well, why is that? What's the pattern? I believe that pattern is because there's a deeper part of you actually calling in the same type of person. So you can heal from it. You can respond differently in the situation. You can learn from it. You can grow from it. And until that happens, the loop just continues. So the inner work is designed to change the direction, right? Rather than this loop that's going on, change the direction to a higher frequency or a more progressive linear life. But how do we do that, right? There's a variety of ways, but let's talk about what that looks like a little bit. And let's first give a working definition to what trauma is. I believe, and we'll use this as our working definition, trauma is essentially any situation in life where the moment was too much for you. So, something that happened when you were 7 years old, you may look at it now and be it's not that big of a deal. But when you were 7, the situation was too much. It was overwhelming. And you didn't know how to discharge it and process those emotions. And then later on in life, maybe you're in a relationship. You think everything's going great. And the relationship breaks up. They leave you, they cheat on you, whatever it is. And the emotions are too much for you. And we don't digest and process those emotions. The way I kind of look at life and when I'm out just in public even, I can't help it, but it's just the lens that I view things through because I do, this kind of work, and I've done this work on myself. As I imagine I have these imaginary glasses, and with these glasses, I can see everybody's undigested and unprocessed emotions as energetic weight. And what do you think that looks like? If you put those same glasses on and you saw all the weight these people are carrying, but the weight of emotions, undigested trauma, what would you see? We'd be carrying a lot, right? I remember being that person. That's how I got to where, essentially where I am today is going through the process of unpacking this stuff. And, there's a really cool video where this lion, because nature has a natural way of understanding this, but we as humans, we're almost over sophisticated and we've lost connection on how to heal these deeper wounds. But there's a video of this lion. It chases down and catches this gazelle, takes it down, getting ready to kill it. And in those moments, in traumatic situations, you're going to have a primitive response. It's going to be fight, flight, or freeze, right? There's a couple other that can happen, but those are the main ones, fight, flight, or freeze, okay? And in this instance, the gazelle freezes, right? Plays dead. You've heard of that term. So it freezes, and the lion getting ready to eat it, but then a hyena comes up, and for whatever reason, the hyena scares this lion, and the lion lets the gazelle go and runs off. And then the gazelle starts to deep belly breathe. There's the breath, right? Starts to deep belly breathe. Then it starts to shake, boom, shakes its body, and then pretty soon it looks up, looks around, takes off. It discharged the emotion. It discharged the trauma, and it's back to a normal homeostasis pattern, right? So that's one of the things that I incorporate with my breath work is there's some certain techniques that we can do and use to really reinvent what's called a sympathetic state, which is a stress state within our nervous system, but we do it in a safe container. So when you experienced it in the past, it was an unsafe container. But now you experience it in a safe container, it allows you to discharge some of those emotions and rechange that pattern, right? And so what typically it looks like in life, right? Because that's like a specific type of practice that we can do to discharge more trauma. But one of the things we can do in life is, if you see the loop coming back to you, meaning you're experiencing something that reminds you of a similar past experience, right? Maybe it's a new relationship that you're in and certain emotions are coming up, you're feeling triggered. The thing to do is to sit with the emotion rather than run from it. We often create this pattern of running from our past trauma, running from our wounds. And it looks like being a workaholic, been there, working out too much, been there, alcohol, drugs, all these type of escapes, right? Our cell phones, all these are little escapes that we're distancing ourselves from our reality. And our reality is where the medicine is. So what I would invite you to do is when you feel an emotion, you feel a trigger, is to just sit with the emotion. And this is just kind of, some steps to begin the process of working through these wounds, right? For our purposes now, we're not going to go all the way into it, but this will just help you understand a little bit of what it feels like to connect with our emotions, work through some of our wounds, understand when a trigger is taking place. So as you feel you're starting to feel triggered, and you'll know by typically a physical response within the body. So your shoulders might come up, your voice might tighten, your breath might shallow out, your forehead might get stiff, like your brows might tighten up, right? You start getting contracted. If you think about it, like that's a biological response for fear, right? Defense mechanism. So you'll notice it in the body. And then oftentimes a trigger sounds like it won't match the situation. Meaning like your new, the new person you're dating goes to the store and you text them, they don't respond back to you right away, and you're triggered because that reminds you of your ex who cheated on you, and when you would text them, they also wouldn't respond back to you right away. And so then you react like with this emotional response, right? So you text them back, you're like, hey, I get it, if you're not that into me, right? It doesn't match the situation, right? They just went to the grocery store and they haven't texted you back yet. That's the reality right now. So in that moment, you can recognize that you've been triggered, okay? And so the thing to do is to sit with the emotion and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And this is the important part. Ask yourself, what is the story that I'm telling myself? Because there's a story typically going on, and I'm going to share with you in a second how to create a reframe. So the story that's going on is like, I'm feeling like by them not responding to me, they must not be interested in me. And that means that I'm not enough. Right? That's the story you're actually telling yourself, because that's probably the story that you took out of the past relationship when they left you and cheated on you, right? And so you have a story that's taking place, and that unconscious story is now operating your life, operating your emotions, and it's moving you further away from the reality that you actually want. And so can you see why it's so important to work through our wounds, to heal our trauma, to get in deep and work with these emotions? So the thing to do in this instance, right, and this is just like a small frame for a certain type of situation, but helping us to understand our triggers. So the thing to do in that instance is to recognize the emotion. Ask yourself, what is the story that I'm telling myself? And then let's create a reframe, okay? So now the reframe looks like, okay, I understand the story I'm telling myself, but could it be that that's actually not true? And could it be that this person actually is into me? Maybe they're just not around their phone right now, right? And they just haven't seen my text message yet. Reframe, right? Maybe they actually really are into me. So let that settle in a little bit. And also, to go a little bit deeper is to look at where the story came from. So you'd ask yourself, where did that story come from? Why do I feel that way? Like literally sitting with that emotion. Where did that story come from? Why do I feel this way? And you'll find it. You'll see it. It'll come up to you, right? And you go, man, like my past relationship, that's what I felt like in the relationship. And maybe that kind of in some ways was the reality. They were emotionally unavailable, and it left that kind of like, emptiness within you, right? But let's reframe that as well, because it's going to create the bridge between the past and the future and create a new reality. And it will look like this. So the reframe would be, could it be actually that maybe they were into me, but they were like so damaged and so wounded themselves, and they had this big like void of needing love, needing attention, and maybe sex was the way they filled that, or maybe like getting attention from men or women was the way they filled that void. And that actually had nothing to do with me. Remember, they did like me, but they're still doing that same pattern in life. And if you can see that, you can then create a reframe and go, wow, I'm a different person today than I was even yesterday. I'm certainly a different person today than I was back then. And I can handle this much differently. And also, the person I'm with now in this new relationship is also different, right? They're a different person than that other person was. So let me reframe this, creating a reframe, and allow this to be a different situation, okay? Pretty cool, right? So we're starting to create the reframe, we're understanding our trigger. And now, the last bit, for this little section of understanding wounds and trauma, there's a whole lot to it, right? But this is just a little segment to bring some awareness around what triggers feel like and how to kind of work within them. We're not going to fix the trigger necessarily. We're only creating a reframe and we're understanding it. And the more we understand it and we see the emotions and the trigger comes up, pretty soon you create distance from it. Meaning like something comes up and you can actually see the thought and the trigger coming up. So you're like, oh, like I'm being triggered again. Oh, there's that emotion again. Let me choose to respond a little bit differently here, right? And the way we want to respond, and in this situation with your new date, your new partner who went to the grocery store, right, and didn't answer your text, is we want it to look something like this. We want to communicate from an empathetic heart space, and it will sound like this. It'll sound like, if you are feeling triggered, it's okay to communicate that, but just be honest and authentic in that. Say something like, hey, when you went to the grocery store and you didn't answer my text right away, I just wanted to let you know that it reminded me of like a past relationship where my partner did cheat on me. I would text them, they wouldn't respond to me. And I want you to know that I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful for this relationship and where it's going. And just so you know, that comes up sometimes for me. And so I'm a little sensitive around that. And maybe that can be your cue just to give me a little extra love, a little extra attention when I'm feeling that way. But I'm grateful to be in this relationship. And I'm so grateful to be honest and be able to share with you, my emotions and my feelings and some of my past triggers. Totally different, right? How do you think they're going to respond to you? They're going to feel you and they're going to respond back to you and go, oh man, like, thank you. They're going to want to pull in closer to you. Now look at that versus the other response of, I'm triggered. They haven't responded back to me. Hey, if you're not into me or whatever, just let me know. Or what are you doing? Why could you, do you not have your phone on you? Are they going to want to pull in closer to you or are they going to be pushed further away? So do you see the situation that takes place within relationships? And that happens in a variety of situations in life. And that's why working through our trauma, working through our wounds, understanding our triggers is so powerful and so impactful for so many aspects of our life, aspects of our life. It's a natural healing mechanism. And what takes place is we start to reclaim our intuition. And when we reclaim our intuition, we get a beautiful gift. And that's the gift of choice. We then start to choose what we desire in life. Because when we're not operating from our intuition, our feeling sensations, we're designed to feel like you have over 100 billion nerve cells in your body. You're designed to feel things. But when we disconnect from our intuition, we go up into our heads, we become heady, right? It becomes hard to sleep, we overthink, we have a racing mind. And remember, the mind can only predict the future based on the past. So in this example we've used, it's trying to predict the future based on the past. It's not present. It's not actual reality right now. So by healing our wounds, we start to reclaim our intuition. We connect the bridge between our mind and our body, our feelings, and they can communicate and work together. I feel like the mind does a better job in the passenger seat. I want my feelings and my mind to work together. I don't want my mind just to run and navigate my life for me. But by healing our wounds, we loosen up some of that bandwidth. We could, reclaim our intuitive state, right? And we lose our intuition. I'll just share with this before we wrap up here, but we lose our intuition when we are in a relationship One example is when we're in a relationship, we think everything's going great and the person leaves us unexpectedly. And then we frame that as, oh no, I don't want to experience that pain again. I can't let this happen. And so we go up into our heads. We no longer trust ourselves and we become heady, right? We start operating out that predictable future based out of the past. Everything's in here, but the mind has no presence. So by healing our wounds, we come back into our intuitive state and we feel once again, we reclaim, our life. And that is what I believe is what manifesting actually is. It's feeling our way through life and manifesting what feels best to us. But how can we do that if we're stuck in our heads and stuck in our trauma? So this is your cue. This is a little encouragement from Troy to move into that work, to start connecting to your triggers and just let everything slow down a little bit. There's a whole lot more work to be done with trauma, and there's always more work to be done within us. We're in process. Remember, not perfection, progress. We're always moving in progress. And your healing takes time. So allow it time, be graceful with yourself, gentle with yourself throughout this process. And I'm sending you so much love. I hope you can feel it, man. But let's keep rolling. Let's keep working on stuff. And it's all good. So until next time, if you guys can do me a favor, like the video, subscribe, and share with somebody who could benefit from this. I love you all so much. Peace.